What's going on? Welcome back to another Reflection Friday. I'm with Steve Richards. What's going on, Steve?
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. You got so many different things in your mind, all the time.
Happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be here.
Sounds good. Well, I'm going to ask you two questions. They're easy questions, but we always like to just reflect. Sometimes we don't spend enough time reflecting
Ah,
on where we were at, before we got into real estate investing. So I know you've actually been doing this longer than I have. So tell us what were you doing before you got into real estate investing?
So, it's interesting. I don't spend much time reflecting, but I spend time talking about this. Just in the position we're in, I feel like I tell my story to people a lot, but I just breeze through it like it's like a pamphlet that I'm reading. So I appreciate doing this with you because I was thinking about this going into it, and I went to business school and got out in the tech world. And so in the late 90s, I came out and I was doing tech consulting with .com startups and big, like Department of Defense or Eli Lilly, big companies like that. So I was in the corporate world doing the, go to college, get a good job, work up the ladder kind of thing. So
I love that. Yeah. And what was, that's what most people do. I went to college and I started out in business too, but I felt that's what it was about. It was about how to get a good job, how to climb the ladder, be a
mhm.
professional. There wasn't a lot about entrepreneurship. There wasn't a lot about owning your own business. And that's why I got out of it. I was like, well, I don't really want to climb the ladder. I just want to own my own business and I don't have to go to business school to do that because they're not teaching me that. Right. So like, so what was it like just kind of being in that corporate environment? I mean, a lot of people probably listen to this. You can speak into them. Like, I don't even know because I never was in that type of environment. So what is that like versus entrepreneurship?
What's interesting is one of the things that we help a lot of other people understand is because I think so many people think corporate world is crazy and they want to run away and they don't want to be corporate. The reality is like there's a bunch of good stuff in the corporate world. Like annual goals and like quarterly rocks and like weekly planning and quarterly performance reviews. And it's funny, like some of that stuff you resent, but there's a lot of structure in the corporate world. And that's actually a good thing that us as entrepreneurs need to have. And we actually run away from it. We ditch it. And then later, like, we build businesses, we hire teams, and then we pay people a crap ton of money to come in and set that structure,
Yeah.
set it up for us, don't we?
Yeah.
So the corporate world had a lot of that, but I was resentful for that because you just feel like you're kind of under lock and key and you're always reporting. And I don't think people understand when they're in that environment why all that stuff matters because they don't know what the owners of that business know. So they're not privileged to like the real big picture and they see decisions come down the pipeline. I would regularly think like, why are we doing this? Like this isn't, so I was disconnected to the vision of the business. And then also the bad side of corporate is drama, gossip, nepotism, like just there's pieces of that stuff that just sucks on the relationship side. So it felt like a game to me, and I tend to figure games out and win. So like I didn't mind it too much, but as I reflect back on it, I think about all the dumb things I would do. Like have nothing to do but stay late just so that someone sees you walk out late.
Mhm.
Or like you're going to lunch a little early and you walk out of the office, you go out a back door and go a certain way so that someone doesn't see what you're doing. Or like like my last day job, this was so funny. It was a family owned business that hired me from the consulting company I was at to come in and be basically their director of technology. And I kind of knew I was going to start something of my own at that point. So I'm like, look, I'll come in here and help you build this. And I knew I was at some point once I got them up and running because they were spending $80 an hour with three different consultants full time. So it was $240 an hour, 40 hours a week. I mean, they were just bleeding, right? But that family owned business really taught me something because there was such weird dynamics and gossip and everything that like if I saw one of the brothers go into the other brother's office and shut the door, I knew something was going down. And I think this will resonate with people that are in the corporate world. I would have to come up with a reason to go knock on the door and be like, hey, I'm really sorry to interrupt you guys. Such and such just happened. And they're like, hey, come in here, shut the door. And I'm like, they can't talk without me or I'm going to be left out. Something's going down. And it's like, to sum that up, I guess the main thing was what as I reflect on that, to keep the theme of what you're asking me, is like, rarely did I think, what is the best thing that we should be doing right now to create real value, to actually provide something that the market needs. Like, I don't remember in the corporate world that ever being, it was like, stay on budget, stay on track, just do the things you got to do, like play the game. Like, it was crazy. It was never about, which is the opposite now in all the businesses I own. All I care about is providing value, and the other stuff to, put the right foundation and structure in place, and then make sure you're providing a value that has some kind of marketability, to the world. And like, the business part takes care of itself. Right. But it was the opposite of that back then. It was crazy as I look back on it.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. Most people, if they work a corporate job, I would say, hey, what do you do? And what's your company about? And a lot of times they tell me about their role or what they're doing and what their tasks are or their name of their position. But rarely do they tell me about the mission or the vision of the company. And I think that's where you lose some of that in the corporate world. So awesome. Thanks for sharing, Steve. The last question is, we like to reflect on how has real estate investing changed your life? So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, man, that's a good question. You know, Specifically, I don't know that it might have been any other business that I did this with, but it happened to be real estate. This real estate is so tried and true, and just so it's going to always be there. And although it's shifting and molding, it changes over time, right? And it goes through cycles. But the reality is, it's been a sandbox, in a way, and it's also a platform in a way for us to get to the point where, where my real heart is just creating impact with people. And currently, I feel like I can create the most lasting, positive, significant impact with entrepreneurs. And so all of the businesses we own right now, in some way or another, all kind of funnel back into that vision and that purpose that I have in my life. And so in the real estate world, it's really been, like my street MBA, like really learning how to run a real business. And I've just did it so wrong, wrong enough, long enough. And I've spent so much money on coaches and training. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting, but it's literally given me a life in a different manner than I would have ever had. And one of the things that's different about real estate than if you're trying to be an internet marketer or MLM or like all these other things you might do to make money, that all could work, right? The product is so tangible and so like has so much longevity because everybody needs a house, kind of. And then the other thing is the margins are so big, it just leaves so much room for error that you don't get wiped out when you make some mistakes, right? And so real estate can be very transformational because it only takes like a deal can change someone's life, right? And so if you learn why that happened and you can repeat it because there is so much longevity in it and so much margin in it, it's much easier to replicate over time. And once you get going, it's less likely to just poof, be gone in 2 or 3 years because, the next new technology came out and, people don't do DVDs anymore because you were right. Like you were doing something in some kind of tech that's gone. Like you were making MP3 players and now they're just in every single cell phone and that product is obsolete. Right. That's not going to happen with real estate. So yeah, man, it's pivotal. Real estate changed the game for me and got me in a position now that, we either own or equity advisor in 10 different businesses. And I don't spend more than an hour or two in any of them a week and get to coach and mentor a lot of people, which is where my heart is. And it's all based around real estate gave all that to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So a couple of things, guys, just real estate investing, as I reflect, Steve talked about just the high margins of real estate. And sometimes when we've been doing this for so long, we forget that. And my parents were both teachers. My dad was a high school teacher and I went to school to be a teacher. And when I got out of college, starting out teachers made maybe $28,000 a year. I don't know, $30,000 a year, something like that. And that was working all year, right? It's working really, really hard at teaching your entire class, and it's a hard job. And there's been deals, one deal in real estate that we can make that in one deal. And that kind of blows your mind, and we forget that, you know,
No.
and that's the type of business that we're in. Um, so I just want to kind of, that's awesome. And Steve, before we get off here, you are very passionate about financial freedom and just having freedom in your life. And I know freedom is a word that, you know, we use it in a lot of different ways, right? We use it in just, you know, the political, we talk about freedom, and, you know, our country, we talk about, and Christianity, we talk about freedom, and then we talk about financial freedom, which is obviously a step. But you're very passionate about freedom, and so just to kind of give us a little glimpse on why you're so passionate about that, and you know, why do you love to talk about that with entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, if you can,
There you go.
where
True
true
freedom.
freedom, right? Like,
Is true
look
freedom
at
different than
that.
just is true freedom different than just freedom thrown around?
In my opinion, freedom is definitely it's become like a term that gets used for different kinds of things, right? Like you just said, the reality is it doesn't show up the way that you expect typically. And you may not feel like it, but a lot of it's perspective, in my opinion. And I think that's what a lot of us need, is to understand, like, some of these things that feel like obligations are really like blessings, especially when you own a business. You're not trapped by it. You know, I was just telling you about a training we were trying to pump out, and I'm staring at it thinking, like, this sucks because there's a bunch of crap in here I don't like that the creative guys want me to put into this presentation. It's not really me, but there's 51 slides to put together, and I normally put like 3 slides together, and I just talk for an hour. You know what I mean? So I could have easily been like, oh, this is like cramping my style. But anyway, I just, as I was finishing that, and as a webinar that I ran last night in particular, man, I was just praying about it and thinking about it while I was driving into my office almost at 9 o'clock at night to do this late night webinar, you know, that I was on from like 9 to almost like 10:45 at night. And I was just so thankful, because I've wanted for so long to figure out a different way than just one-on-one creating impact with clients, you know, or through our team, like to start to get to the masses. And this is the beginning of that, where we have this product that can just run on a webinar off of a Facebook ad. And I will never meet hundreds or thousands of people who will buy this little $2,000 thing, but it will literally ripple effect, because they'll watch hours and hours of me personally putting that content together. And so, just to back into what you said, I mean, I had to sit there and pound out this PowerPoint and be on a thing at 9, 10 o'clock at night and do all this, but you could feel like that's not freedom, but I chose to do that. And it is literally, the perspective is that I'm going to unleash something on people that will touch people that I will never meet in my life, and I would have never met otherwise if I didn't have this asset, and be willing to invest, you know, spend quite a bit of money on Facebook to like reach people that don't know me and try to get them to give me their email so I can send this thing to them, right? So all that stuff could feel like expenses and obligations and work, and it doesn't. Like, it's part of my freedom. It's what I want to do because I want to. So a lot of that impact, again, is about perspectives. You know, we've been talking heavy in COVID times, which is, you know, we're at the, hopefully getting in the middle or tail end of here, but you know, these things that come along, they're really opportunities. They're not obstacles. And a lot of it has to do with perspective. So that's why true freedom is kind of in quotes. And I'll just kind of finish that by saying, I really think that this is like a stage answer that people say, and then people don't think this really exists, but it's really the ability to do what you want with who you want, whenever you want. Here's the reality though. You might think that's crazy because I'm not going to make $1 million a month, and I can't do anything I want with whoever I want, wherever I want. Like, I can't fly 100 of my best friends on a last note, you know, weekend trip to Greece and rent a mansion. And like, who really wants that? That's not what you want. So the key word in what I said about do what you want with who you want, when you want, in my opinion, is true freedom. But the want, and you've been through an event we did last summer where we talked about what do you really want. If you're honest with yourself, you can have what you want.
Yeah.
And who you want it with. It's usually, again, it's different than you think. But if you're really honest with yourself, you can go after it and make it happen. And it's not it's always different than we think, but it's usually easier than we think.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's perspective. And so anyway, I
Love it.
mean, you got to be careful asking me a question like that when we're doing a 15, 20-minute segment, but hopefully that resonates with people. And I would just urge you guys to, as you reflect on stuff, just really dig into who you think you are, what impact you want to make in the world, and what you really want. And then a lot of the business decisions and life decisions like become easier because so much of the stuff we deal with, COVID has proved that, Brett. Like half the stuff I thought mattered 9 months ago, especially with my kids in school and homework assignments, and somehow they didn't even go to school anymore and they're still like fine. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway.
No, I mean, thanks for sharing that. I know you're real passionate about that. And so freedom doesn't really free you from obligations. You're just, you're doing obligations now of things that you really want. That's, your purpose. It sounds like you want to positively impact as many people as you can. And this is, so in order to do that purpose, you have obligations that you have to do sometimes,
Yeah.
So
It's
love that.
really having choices. Not dope. I know I don't want to steal your thunder and go because I know we're done with this thought here, but most people don't have a lot of choices or don't think they do. And the freedom is really having the options to choose what your obligations are, what your work is, how you're going to spend your time, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Appreciate you being on this today. This is the end of Reflection Friday with Steve Richards. And thanks, Steve. And have a
Yeah,
great
man.
weekend, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on anytime, man. See you, Brett.